Hi, I'm Alanah and welcome to Button Bash. Divinity Original Sin is a party-based role-playing game with turn-based combat, co-op multiplayer, and a really cool level editor, to say the very least. It was developed by Larian Studios and I played it on PC, though it is also available on Mac and is set to release on Linux operating systems at a later date. Overall, Divinity Original Sin is reminiscent of a handful of extremely well-loved RPGs from the past. You start off by picking and customizing two characters from a handful of available classes and specific skills or perks, which aren't all that different to most other RPGs. All of these things can be leveled up over the course of the game. It's pretty standard stuff, but if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Admittedly though, it is really hard to customize characters in this game when you have no idea what you're in for or really how anything works. You could screw up your characters and only realize 10 hours in that everything is way too hard. Did I do that? Maybe? Okay, yeah, I did. I picked two mage-type characters and their attacks would negatively influence one another because the elements were working against each other. It didn't tell me that would happen, I didn't know, and I can imagine a whole lot of people giving up on Original Sin because you have to be extremely careful with your choices without ever knowing you need to be. There are a whole heap of other things that this game doesn't bother to teach you about too, but I suppose that's why there are so many guides up online for that kind of thing. Aside from that annoyance, I do really like having two characters. Even without knowing how to spec them correctly originally, I still had two separate playstyles at my disposal. It's weird feeling like you're playing cooperatively by yourself, though the game does have multiplayer options too. The story actually follows your two characters who have set out to explore the secrets of forbidden magic, but as is with any RPG, they're destined for so much more. You pick up more characters as you go along and end up with a full party of 4, and there's some really great banter between them. Even enemies chatting to each other while you're sneaking around is particularly funny from the get-go, making it hard not to fall in love with the game straight away. I really want to mention some of my favorite quests here too, but they're so entertaining and different from the usual dull RPG errand boy style quest that I don't want to spoil the experience. Some are really generic, but for the most part the game is laced in really infectious enthusiasm. There is this really unusual thing that seems to happen where quests get all mixed up because you walked into a room before you were meant to without any way of possibly knowing about that, and things interconnect in really confusing ways. Not because they're complex, but because you might not be able to access some things until a later quest, but you'll have no way of knowing about it and it doesn't bother to tell you. A key you need in one moment might be stuck in another quest, and the issue here isn't that the game doesn't hold your hand, because I totally welcome that part of it, but it feels messy. More than once I just wanted to yell, "What do you want from me?" because it doesn't bother to tell you important things that you couldn't possibly know, so you just end up wasting a whole heap of time wondering. Some of the interactions in the game can be a whole lot like a BioWare game, like Mass Effect, or probably more fittingly Baldur's Gate, except kind of better. What you say, what character you say it as, and what you're doing while you say it will all significantly influence the outcome of any interaction. Your other party members might disagree with some of your dialogue choices to the point where they'll actually just leave the party. It's a really cool feature, and it honestly made me look forward to dialogue. Sometimes it is just very standard questions and answers type stuff, but the answers are still usually pretty funny. Beyond that, there are so many ways to approach combat, intelligently too. If your enemies are near oil, you might want to hide and throw some fire at them. Boom, they're up in flames. If your enemy is wet, you can use an electricity spell, which will inflict even more damage. Just make sure that you aren't in a puddle of water when you cast it, or you'll cop it as well. If you're up against a fiery enemy, you'll only heal them by attacking them with fire. You're better off summoning rain. You can also hack away at chests if you don't want to find a key, but this will wear away at your weapon pretty quick. It just requires some actual thought, and really often had me questioning why more games aren't just more like Divinity Original Sin. Of course, there are some extra minor flaws. The inventory system is a confusing beast, with each character having a separate inventory that you have to juggle around a bunch. The economy is totally ridiculous, but actually really fun to manipulate, and the trade system is just as confusing as the inventory, if not more. Considering money is fairly important and absolutely every NPC in the game is a merchant, it's just a mess you'll have to face pretty quickly. Regardless of being unwelcomingly complicated in a handful of instances, it's still a beautiful learning experience and an extremely satisfying game overall. The combat is intelligent, the dialogue is remarkably dynamic, and the game is guaranteed to steal hours of your time if you can make it past those first 6 or so hours. Divinity Original Sin is currently available on PC and Mac if you'd like to give it a go.
Let the source hunters handle the big brutes. Charge! Kill the unbelievers!